the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation, with your hosts Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Lawrence Smith.
FCS Fans Nation, my feet are tangled in my cords. Matthew Frazee has bad internet. Who cares? We are not going to slow down this podcast. If you're looking at this little panel, you'll see a couple recognizable faces. Then you'll see one face that's a what the hell moment. I remember him. He's back in your senior yearbook that you have not seen in a very long time, but you're reminiscing. You're looking at your 10-year reunion. We got D-Law Smith, the Duke dog himself, the original one that we decided was not as good as Jamie Williams. So we replaced him this year. It wasn't because Dustin or whatever your name is, Lawrence. What the hell is your name? It wasn't because Lawrence had free time or he didn't have free time. It's because we just wanted Jamie Williams on the podcast. But for the finale, Lawrence is back. Plus, we got Brandon Owens from Cocky Nation, and we got himself the new Duke dog number 2, Jamie Williams. How are you guys doing today? Lawrence, let's start with yourself. What the hell have you been up to, man?
I've just been busy trying to do work and school at the same time. And I tried to get on for the first couple episodes this year, and I kept getting tired of saying, sorry guys, I'm not going to make it tonight. And I saw that the podcast seemed to be in capable hands this year. So I just kind of took a step back and let you guys have it.
Yeah, I mean, once you left, the viewership increased, the members increased. I mean, it was such a beautiful thing for the whole FCS Fans Nation crew to have Lawrence gone. But you're back, so let's see those views tank. Jamie, how you doing since our weekend together?
Oh, doing good. Nice, easy flight back. Little bit of a nap on the plane. Work week, yeah. Another weekend, and here we are. You know, this time last Saturday, we were sitting out having some barbecue. Well, you weren't, but that's for another story for another day.
Long nap. Kyler Neal is 2 for 2, taking long naps after the game, and I am proud of it because, man, I need my beauty sleep. And then we got Cocky Nation, Brandon Owens. Hey, it was great finally seeing you. You know, we haven't actually seen you face to face, only on the podcast. How have you been doing since this whole weekend?
Just now recovering tired-wise. From the trip. I was so exhausted, plus the crap I had to go through at DFW with my terminal changing, gate changing, time of my flight changing. Like, I was just ready to be home, and by the time I was home, I was exhausted. I had to go right back to work the next day.
Just booking that without not being able to get in there and pick up Matt and I. So we had to find the shield gas.
Oh my God. That was a train wreck.
Well, we got a guest coming up in like 15 minutes to do a little bit of a quick interview. He's been famous. So let's just dive into the podcast. And then after that interview, we'll pick it back up with some of the questions that were asked by our FCS Fans Nation fans. So number one, Keith Hooper, who we saw, he was there at the game. You know, I got to see him, 2 weekends out of the last 3. So that was kind of fun. Was Sam Houston's trip to the national championship one of the toughest paths ever? We are going to go with Lawrence since we haven't heard his beautiful voice. Let's start you off with a question right off the bat to see if we need to boot you or keep you.
So I think yes. The obvious answer is yes. It's one of the toughest paths ever. If you want to debate whether it is the single hardest, I think that could be a little bit more nuanced. As far as the gauntlet of teams that they had to play, Monmouth isn't a slouch, and then to have to play North Dakota State. Obviously, their reputation precedes them. James Madison, the other dominant power of the last 5 years. And then in the championship to play South Dakota State, who is like the next team up in the Valley. I don't think I can name a 4-game slate that has been that strong. Of course, you have other examples like 2004 JMU having to play on the road every game for the championship. That one sticks out to me. But if we're just going straight teams that they faced, I think this one tops them.
Yeah, I think you've got to be right, especially because how each game ended also. And when the brackets came out, I think every single one of the panel guests that we had said Sam Houston got screwed. They are the second best team in the country right now, and they deserve that 2 seed, but they got screwed with their actual scheduling. Jamie, what's your thought process on Sam Houston's bracket? Did they have the toughest road to the national championship ever?
I mean, without going back, it was a tough road. I mean, maybe it's some recency bias as to how tough this looks versus other ones, but without kind of going back and looking at every bracket and really breaking it down, I mean, it's hard to argue with 2 of the top 5 or 6 teams over the last 5 or 3 of them, that they had to go through and to have to battle every game. That nothing was easy for them, even the Monmouth game. Every game came down to the last minute, and they were able to stand their ground, make the play that needed to be made, and the opponents didn't. And, they're a very, very worthy national champion through a tough road, and can't do anything but salute them and congratulate them.
What about you, Cocky?
Everybody pretty much said hit the points that I wanted to hit, but yeah, Sam Houston has had one of the toughest roads to the national championship. I know Lawrence said JMU going on the road in 2004, but I want to bring up another one who actually won the national championship, and that's
we won it in 2004, punk.
I want to bring up another team that won in 2002, and that's Western Kentucky. They played their first game at home and then went on the road the rest of the playoffs, and they were unseeded. So I think they have had one of the most tough roads to a national championship, but like Lawrence said, is it the toughest? That can be debatable.
At least name recognition. You got to say it's the toughest. Actual strength of schedule. Spring was a little different. Like the JMU boys alluded to, they went on the road the whole playoffs and won a national championship. You maybe have to give them credit just because of the road games are supposed to be a little bit down. But Sam Houston, every step of the way, they earned this national championship, and no one can take this away. No asterisks on this one. They absolutely deserved it. Let's go to Jordan's question. Do you agree with SDSU's final play call of the game? They had a timeout left. They threw the ball downfield, make the catch, knee, timeout, and kick the football. Brandon Owens, do you agree with kind of SDSU's last kind of final play calling, or no?
No, I think they should have passed it down the field. If they really wanted to win the game, they should have passed it down the field, got within field goal range, and kicked the field goal to win the national championship. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Jamie. What's your thought process?
The problem is on that play, there's only 5 seconds left, so there's no guarantee that you're going to get the snap off, the play executed, and a timeout in just 5 seconds. And I believe they were at the 48 or the 38-yard line, so they needed some yardage. I think what they should have done is just stop back and Hail Mary. I mean, go to the end zone. They had just seen a hook and lateral, and they just ran it to the other side, and he made some yards. But give yourself a chance. Throw it to the end zone.
Right. And the original Duke Dog, you were probably watching this game on TV. What's your thought process? Because you had a different angle than all of us.
Yeah, I was surprised that they ran the hook and ladder, 2 in a row. I think if you want to do that, the first time out, you gotta be more aware of how much time you have left, because I think when the first play started, they have 14 seconds left or something. And so if you can get that first one off, get 10 or 12 cheap yards in 5 or 6 seconds, and then leave yourself 8 or 9 for the last. I guess in this situation it wouldn't be the last play, but give yourself 8 or 9 seconds to get another play in, and then you can get maybe to the 30-yard line, kick a field goal, and take home that trophy. But to call it 2 plays in a row, I think that surprised me.
Yeah. So that's kind of our answers, Jordan. And I think you're probably thinking the same thing as us. Let's move on to the next one from our famous SFA guy, Dustin Helton, who, he was getting a lot of smack on Twitter because he's an FSA fan, and everyone's saying, why are you even trying to defend Sam Houston? And Dustin keeps going, I hate Sam Houston, but they deserve respect. So there has been rankings where it comes to FCS programs. NDSU, JMU are tier 1. That's kind of what a lot of the consensus says. Then Sam Houston, Eastern Washington are tier 2, et cetera, et cetera. Is it time to move Sam Houston into tier 1? I got a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm going to kick it to Jamie Williams first. Jamie Williams, what's your thought on this question?
All right. So over the last week, I kind of started breaking down the last 10 seasons just to see what does it look like? How are, is what people saying correct? Their fallacies. So I've looked at every team's record over the last 10 seasons, playoff appearances, quarter semis, FBS wins, finals, championships. The one thing I didn't put in there is conference titles, so that might be a miss, but then I just assigned points. So when I ran this, I mean, far and away, North Dakota State's a tier by themselves, and it's not even close. And the second tier is Sam Houston and James Madison. In that order, guys, in that order. I know I'm wearing this hat. We're 3. And I saw some of the arguments, well, so you can't get blown out that many times and be number 2. Well, you also can't lose to Colgate twice and be number 2. So that's the counter. And then the next tier, Eastern Washington, South Dakota State, Jacksonville State, maybe Illinois State, and then New Hampshire, Northern Iowa, Montana, Central Arkansas. A couple of things just outside of that surprised me. There were 2 teams that were really bad at the first part of the decade, but when they got the right coach over the last few years, they have ascended. That'd be Nichols and Weber State. So just a couple of points to make there. But North Dakota State tier by himself, Sam Houston, James Madison, the next tier, and then you can argue about the rest of it from there, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say James Madison just is not tier 1. If you're comparing the whole FCS, NDSU deserves to be on a pedestal by themselves right now, unless they stink it up in the 2020s. Tier 1 is one team. It's North Dakota State. And then I agree with your tier 2. If you're going back the last 10 years or 5 years, whatever you want, tier 2 is James Madison and Sam Houston. Tier 3 is Eastern Washington and, a few teams. I don't think I'll have all of the teams that you mentioned in there, but I think Eastern Washington is probably on a tier 3 by themselves, and then tier 4 gets drastic. But yeah, I agree with you. Sam Houston deserves to be at least in the same tier as James Madison, and NDSU deserves to be in a tier above both of them. Any thoughts from Cocky or Lawrence before we, move forward?
Unless Lawrence wants to go first.
Go for it.
Yeah, go.
I was just gonna say I think Sam is on the move to be a tier 1, but I would not put them there just yet. They're about to play in a tough conference for 1 year and then move to a tougher, just as tough conference in 2022. So let's see what they do in those 2 conferences first before we make that change for Sam Houston.
Lawrence, anything?
Yeah, just real quick. I think it's a funny thing in the last 5 years or so, since JMU has really turned it on. I think they don't really fit into NDSU's category, obviously, but JMU has clearly been better than like the rest of the field for the last 5 years. So I think it's not necessarily a case of moving Sam Houston up to tier 1, but now you can kind of say, okay, maybe JMU has a peer in tier 2. And maybe it just felt weird having like tier 1 team by themselves, tier 2 1 team by itself. And so I think that may be why JMU got put up in tier 1 with NDSU, because they didn't really have a better home. They didn't quite fit with the teams below them. Now that Sam has that championship, their resume exceeds JMU's in the last 10 years. And so now we can group those 2 teams together on their own tier.
Well, I think most people are doing like a rolling 10-year. So I think James Madison was on tier 2 with Eastern Washington, but on a rolling 10-year, Eastern Washington dropped out, where Sam Houston took Eastern Washington's spot as now, more of an online par with James Madison than, they are with Eastern Washington, because most people are going to do a rolling 10-year. What have you done for me lately? That's kind of the mindset of teams. And I don't think 5 years is a big enough sample size, especially because there's a lot of coaching changes. James Madison has done a phenomenal job with their coaching changes. Some other coaching changes, it takes a couple of years, like what Jamie said. Jay Hill, he's come into Weber. He took over a 2-9 Weber team. In the first couple seasons were pretty bad. Now Weber's becoming, a national top 10 team. So I don't think a 5-year time period is enough, but a rolling 10-year, I think, makes a lot of sense. And yeah, think we're all in agreement. James Madison and Sam Houston are on the same tier with themselves. NDSU is on a tier by themselves. So let's ask one more question before we have our famous guest that jumps in. This question is by our Sam Houston famous alumni, Victor Quintana Jr. Does Sam have a realistic shot at repeating, or will the shortened offseason be their undoing? As far as I'm aware, most of the teams are returning to run it back. Also, did the Missouri Valley deserve 0 teams? No, they didn't deserve 0 teams. Here's my thing, Victor, because I want to take this one right off the back, and then I'll open it up to you guys. Does Sam Houston have a realistic shot at repeating? Absolutely. They're probably going to be number 1 moving into this season. But also, you have to look at Sam Houston's playoff resume this last year. They were seconds away from losing every single game. So as much of a realistic shot as they have for repeating, they also have a realistic shot maybe being a quarterfinal team. I mean, it seems like some of the teams that you beat, they had very young quarterbacks. I mean, so did you, but they had very young offensive, and maybe, they just need a little bit of an off-season push. There's going to be a little bit of changes, but not drastic changes. So yeah, you guys definitely have a realistic shot at repeating, but because of every single game in the playoffs was close, you also have a very realistic shot of maybe getting upset in the quarters, maybe getting upset in the second round. It all just depends on what type of matchup you get. Matchups make for games. Sometimes the best team does not always come out on top. Anyone else have an opinion? Let's go with Lawrence. What's your thought on Sam Houston repeating?
I think this season was a really good palate cleanser for the FCS. JMU didn't win it, NDSU didn't win it, and a Big 3 team didn't win it. And so I feel like it kind of opened up that door where now you feel like, okay, maybe this really is anyone's game. And I think that might carry into next season as well. Maybe it won't be Sam Houston that repeats, but maybe it'll be Jacksonville State, or who knows. Maybe it will be NDSU or JMU. But I think the door is open still for an ultra competitive season like we saw this time, where you have 6, 7, 8 teams that could legitimately win the championship. And I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of parity I see coming in the next few years. Jamie Williams, what's your thought?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the point that you made. All the games are close. Anything happens in any of those games that flips those, and you're out earlier. Do they have a shot to win the national championship? Absolutely. We know the talent's there, but other teams will get better. They won't execute exactly how they did potentially in all those games. So I think, yeah, we're looking at a wide open fall, and it's something we haven't had in the FCS in the fall in a really long time. So looking forward to that.
The parity this spring, I have to say, even though my team was bowed out in the very first round pretty horribly, we looked like James Madison, but just we didn't have as big an enough lead to make it close. But the game was pretty similar to where it was a tale of 2 halves. The parity was fun. I had a blast watching the playoffs, and I hope it continues to this fall. Cocky Nation, your thoughts before we bring in our potential guest, see if he's still in the back room.
I agree with both Jamie and Lawrence, but I'm going to comment on as far as the shortened season thing. I think Sam Houston has done it smart for the fall for scheduling, because they're only playing 10 games. So I think they set themselves up for success to possibly repeat. But then again, you look at who they're playing next year. I mean, they could repeat, they could not. We'll just have to wait and see.
I will say this before we bring in our amazing guest. Everyone on Sam Houston's schedule does not make Sam Houston nervous this coming season. I will say that, but it should still be fun to watch. Now we got the famous meme heard around the world. This guy's been trending on Twitter. He's been trending on Facebook. He's probably even been on MySpace. I have no clue, but we got the official crying Sam Houston fan, Garet Rose. He's going to join us for about the next 10 minutes or so. And, we just kind of want to see what the hell's been going on, man. Are you still happy? Are you still crying? Do you need Kleenex?
Oh, absolutely. I'm waiting for the Kleenex sponsorship to pop up.
Yeah, so let's hear kind of your thought process on some of the actual game and what was going on in your head, those maybe final last couple minutes, because that was a hell of an ending. Let's hear your experience.
So it was crazy, to say the least. Just that entire the South Dakota running it in, taking the lead, and just having the stands just deflate after that was crazy. And what's number two's name? Idea, something like that. His family was right beside us, and he was starting the Sam Houston chant, like trying to get the fans going back up, trying to keep them involved and not shut down. And so just that entire drive, I don't know about y'all, but I could tell. I was like, if we don't turn the ball over, I didn't think it was going to go in that fashion, like the throw, but it was incredible. I was praying the entire time, like, God, please, we need a selfish prayer right now. Selfish prayer right now. Just get it in the end zone.
I love it, man. Let's open up any other questions to the rest of the panel. And then, we'll want to know a little bit more about yourself, but let's open it up with some questions to the rest of the guys. And we can even introduce ourselves. So for one, Garet, my name's Kyler Neal. I'm an Eastern Washington alumni. So, you've actually battled us in the playoffs a long time. You've kind of upset us a couple times, but it's been a fun battle. And now I live in Houston, so I go to Sam Houston games every now and then. So it's been a good time. But yeah, let's open it up. Introduce your guys' selves and ask some questions.
Yeah, I'm Jamie Williams. I'm a James Madison fan, so had the up and down against your team in the playoffs. So, Mike, the only one thing I want to know, the camera caught you at the perfect time for your reaction to the touchdown by Adai. If the camera was on you when Isaiah Davis broke that 85-yard touchdown, what would we have seen at that point?
I feel like it was the same reaction. I think the reaction that broke the internet was us winning the game. But I'm pretty sure I made the exact same response. I was actually filming. I have a video of the touchdown. So I didn't have a voice by the third quarter, so whatever was coming out was inaudible and very horrific. So I'm still recovering. So it was something.
I have a video of that touchdown from the end zone for it coming in. I posted it.
That was such a good angle.
So yeah. Lawrence, Brandon.
Lawrence, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. My name's Lawrence. I originally a James Madison fan. Grew up in that going to games at JMU, and now I live in Cheney, Washington. So I'm an adopted Eastern Washington fan. I was in the stands in January 2017 when JMU won the national championship, and I can remember the emotion that came over. So I can totally relate with your reaction there. Our championship game that we won wasn't nearly as dramatic, but definitely feel the emotion there. What did you feel like? What were you thinking this entire playoff run? Because as we've mentioned a couple times in this episode, the game against Monmouth was close. The game against NDSU was close. You guys were down big against JMU and made the comeback. Like the totality of the experience, how did you go through that as a fan of the team?
Every game for me was just like the national championship. It was a roller coaster of emotion. I got to go to the last two playoff games just because of scheduling during this semester was tough for me. So I didn't really get to go to most of the football games. But the one against North Dakota, the one against JMU was, especially after the JMU one, and like having that similar situation during the national championship, I was like, we're still in this. And so just being like, I'm in a very emotional guy, if I can't tell already. So just being a part, just seeing those close win games every week was too much to handle. It was almost like finals week every week.
It had to feel like a team of destiny, this run.
It definitely shaped up to be the perfect ending to a perfect season.
Perfect. Yeah, Brandon, do you got one? And then I have a few that I want to ask, and then we'll let you go, Garet.
Yeah, I have one pertaining not to the championship game. So my name is Brandon Owens. I host the Cocky Nation podcast. I go to Jacksonville State. Well, graduated from Jacksonville State, attending grad school there. So seeing that both of our teams are going to be in the same conference for 1 year only, what do you think? What are your expectations for Sam Houston going into what I like to call the WAC sun?
I don't know much about the WAC. Like I'm still trying to learn all the new stuff, but just kind of what y'all said earlier. I was listening in before. I feel like Keeler has done a really good job of like the long haul, just building up this team, not just doing a one and done, but like just with all the trials that we've been through, with our locker room getting redone, the freeze, about taking out half of Texas. I feel like if most of this team returns, I feel like we could like this team is built off of determination, and so I feel like we could repeat again, and I'll be there again.
Yeah, there you go, man. So we got a question from Matthew Frazee, who's, his internet up in Fargo is so bad. He's just on the background. He's kind of our production manager right now, but he's not really doing anything. So he wants to know, at what point did you realize you were going viral on like Barstool and other social media platforms? I mean, you were getting shared all around the Twitter universe.
So it was about 20 minutes after the game. So about a couple of minutes after the ceremony, for whatever, my phone stopped working. Right after that, everyone using the cell towers or whatever was messing up my phone. But like my friends still had signal, and all these people were texting me. They're telling them like, "Hey, like you're blowing up right now." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like I didn't realize until about halfway home from Frisco, someone, my buddy was like, "Hey, someone wants to do an interview with someone wants to interview from ESPN." I was like, "All right, nope, stop. Y'all are taking this joke way too far." And then they're like, "No, seriously, like this is someone from ESPN wants to interview." And I was like, "Holy cow, this is like, I thought it was gonna be like 5 minutes of fame, like just like, oh yeah, there's that guy." But now I have the official crying Sam Houston fan. I'll forever be known as that. So that's been crazy.
All right, and my last question for you, and then we'll let you jump off. Gosh, look at the beauty of this. I know if people are listening to the podcast, they can't see, but if you're watching on YouTube Live, this picture is just amazing. So, okay, we've seen a lot of famous sports moments. You've seen the Kansas State crying kid. You've seen a lot of the crying girls. You've seen the popcorn guy from Washington State. Where does your crying fan rank on memes 1 through 10? Is it up there towards the popcorn famous guy who had his own 30 for 30 special trying to find him? Where does your picture actually rank among the greats?
See, I can't take away from popcorn guy and Kansas City fan. So I have to just happy to be here. So I'm a 10, man. I can't compete with all these other legends.
I love it, man. Have you seen like any meme that is your favorite so far?
So the one that's most noticeable, we have a really huge Sam Houston statue off of Interstate 45, and they photoshopped my face onto that, and I was like, okay, that one was like, okay, that one's, I don't know how I feel about that one, but that one's good.
Yeah, you saved Texas.
No, I can't take that credit from Sam.
All right. Well, I know we already have, we've plugged your Twitter a couple times, but, we'll let you go. Tell the listeners where they can follow you, where they can find you. And again, thank you for jumping on and spending a couple minutes with us. We do appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm a pretty basic guy. If you find Garet Rose and the meme of the profile picture, that's me. Just want to thank God and thank you for having me on here. And eat my cats.
All right, go Cats.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you,
No
Garet.
problem. Thank you. All right. Well, that was a pretty fun interview. I've had a good time watching a lot of his memes. When I was driving by this, because I drive, up to Houston or Dallas, I guess it's in Dallas. I'm from Houston. When I'm driving up there, you see that Sam Houston giant monument. So when I saw that, I was laughing too. So yeah, guys, that was Garet Rose. That was a crying Sam Houston fan. It was fun getting him on there. We're plugging his Twitter page. Go follow him. He's got 159 followers. Let's make it 200. He's got the ESPN logo on the top. That's awesome. He was interviewed by ESPN. That is awesome. All right. Well, let's get back to some more of the questions. All right. So we got a question by Steve White. Gronowski, Davis, the Jacks have an outstanding freshman class. How well does that bode for them going forward? Should we consider this team title contenders? Let's start again with Lawrence.
It's tough having Gronowski out. South Dakota State's really had a tough go with quarterback injuries, with Jabor Gibbs being out as well. So that's going to be a factor. Can the next guy step up? Was it Heidi? Is that his name? That came into the championship game. Is he going to be the guy? Or I know they said they're going to be in the market for a transfer QB. So I think that's going to be the linchpin for their success next year. Kind of like what you saw with JMU this year. Defense was great. Everything was there. Quarterback play struggled a little bit, and it took a while to figure that out. And once that got figured out, the team started to roll a little bit. I think it'd be a very similar thing with South Dakota State. Can they get the quarterback position figured out and get back on the train? Hopefully, try to get back to Frisco and redeem themselves.
Yeah. Owens, are they still a title contending team?
I think if Heidi is the quarterback next year, I would say yes. But for now, since we don't know who it is, I'm going to put that answer on pause because, like we said, we don't know what's happening right now. So if Heidi is there, I will say this. If Heidi's there, their quarterback, they will be a title contender.
Perfect. Jamie, anything else to add, or is that pretty much covered all?
Yeah, I mean, Keaton Heidi's got to improve. I mean, he managed the game all right, having to come in cold. He played okay. But this is also the same guy that they had at the helm when they were a seed last year, and Northern Iowa came in and beat them 13-10, and Northern Iowa couldn't move the ball on James Madison. So Heidi's got to be better. And I mean, he'll be 2 years removed, proved in the system. Maybe Gibbs comes back. I don't know what the status of how long-term he's out. I don't think we'll see Gronowski. It seems like a pretty massive injury. But with the defense that they have and the running game that they have, they're going to be there. They're going to be tested in the Valley. They're going to be a title contender. Do I say they get back to Frisco? I can't say that for sure, but they'll be one of 8, 9, 10 teams that wouldn't surprise me if they were in the game.
Yep, I don't have anything else to add, so I'm just going to move forward. Paul Amos asks, will playing virtually back-to-back seasons have a negative effect on teams like Sam Houston or Sdsu this fall, since they made those deep playoff runs? Do you think they're going to have a negative effect? Brandon Owens, we'll start with you.
Well, I'll take Sam Houston. Like I already stated, they're playing a 10-game season. They're having 2 bye weeks, I think, where the FCS usually has only 1 bye week. So they're going to have a lot more rest than most other FCS teams. So I don't think it's going to really bother Sam Houston a whole lot.
Yeah, Jamie, what's your thought process?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to teams like that, like let's call it the semifinal teams, even into the quarters that played 8, 9 games. They're going to have kind of that continuity down into the fall where like it's a similar team. So they're going to be able to hit the ground running. Whereas a team like Montana State that haven't played in 2 years, maybe they hit the ground, a little bit off, slow out of the gate. But what I'm interested in see, let's see what happens down towards the end of the season. Do those teams that played 10 games, 8 games, start to show some wear and tear? And then the other teams that got out of the gate a little slow, do they start to ascend? Or does it really not matter because they're 20 years old and they bounce back, unlike those of us who are a touch older than that? I don't know. I think it's a benefit to have played in the spring. Live reps. You cannot beat live reps. And,
yeah,
that's just
Yeah, that's my thing. I mean, I remember when I was a young buck at 18 to 22 years old. Do you remember how fast you could recover from things? As long as there wasn't serious injuries like we did see against Gronowski. I think that's the key. When you have one of your top tier players, they get seriously injured where they may not come in the fall, that's the negative effects that this spring season had. I don't think 3 months, 2 months of recovery time from these 18 to 22-year-old kids is going to have, I think that's enough. I just remember me in college. You could hit me with a bat in the face next week. I'm totally fine as long as it wasn't surgery. It did not matter. The recovery time for these kids are way different than 30-year-old men, 40-year-old men, 120-year-old men. It is different. Lawrence, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys have pretty much covered everything I was going to say. Like, these are Division I athletes. Like, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
If you didn't tear your ACL or have some catastrophic injury like that, the aches and pains and sore muscles, bumps and bruises, those will be gone next month. They'll be fine. I agree with Jamie. The live reps. Think about Montana State, any other team that didn't play a single game, where they're going to be going on 18 months since they had any live game action this fall. I think it's going to be harder to shake that rust off than, say, a team, JMU, Sam Houston, any playoff teams. Yeah, maybe they've got 8-9 games under their belt, that wear and tear, but they've got those reps. They're all on the same page. I think that is going to be more of a benefit than we could see compared to the negativity that the wear and tear might bring.
And I want to add one more thing. We have some pretty favorable week 1 and week 2 matchups against the FBS. I think we're all saying the same thing. This is actually going to prep those kids better. The FBS hasn't played in a full year. Our guys are only 3 months away from being able to play games. We might get more upsets than we've ever had. That's what I'm being optimistic on because, like I said, these engines on these kids, they're a little bit different than everyone else on the podcast. Brandon Owens is the youngest. He's got a quick little engine compared to the rest of us. But everyone else, it's going to take a little bit of time. Let's jump right into this. Quick 5. I'm going to ask you, what is your top 5? This is a question by Cody Werlinger. We already kind of asked, will the spring teams have advantage or disadvantage in the fall? So we won't cover that. We're not going to do top 10 going into the fall. We're just going to do top 5 quick hitters. Lawrence Smith, what's your top 5?
I think a lot of the regulars are going to be there. You're going to see NDSU back ready to go. You're going to see JMU bring Cole Johnson back, have that continuity that we didn't know was going to be there at the quarterback position. Sam Houston, they're bringing almost everyone back coming off that championship. They're going to be great. Like we said, South Dakota State, you get that quarterback position figured out, you can be right back in there. For me, it might be too early to put them in an order. Sam Houston has to be number 1. They proved it. They earned it. After that, I'm going to go with the regulars.
Okay, Jamie, quick top 5 quick hitters.
Yep. Sam Herder and I were actually talking about this Saturday night. So we thought Sam Houston was going to be number 1. We thought South Dakota State would be number 2, TBD on the quarterback, but then James Madison, North Dakota State, and we thought Montana would still be a top 5 team entering the spring. A lot of talent there. So that's kind of the top 5 that I thought of. Sam agrees. We're kind of on the same page there with some other teams just on the outside looking in.
Brandon, what's your top 5?
Same as Jamie.
Yep. Yeah, I think my top 5 right now, if I had to list them out, Sam Houston, number 1, North Dakota State, number 2, James Madison, number 3, South Dakota State, number 4. I'm going to lean with Jamie. I think Montana right now, probably number 5, but we will see what happens. I also think they might be overrated and not be in the top 5. But if I'm listing a top 5 for a preseason, I have no issues putting them as number 5 right now. Number 2 from Will, the UCA football guy. Congrats on your scholarship, by the way. That is very awesome. But it was fun, hanging out with you and your dad at the game. You guys are the odds makers. Give me your final national championship odds for your top 3 teams. Let's have fun with this. Not just 3 that you think are going to win, or actually, I don't know. He says your top 3 teams. I was thinking about what are your top 3 favorite teams and what are their odds to win. But you can go, what do you think are the top 3 teams that have the best chance? But I think we kind of covered it on the last question. So pick and choose whatever you want to do on this question. I'm going to do my top 3 favorite teams and their odds, but I'm going to start with Jamie Williams. Which one are you going and what are their odds?
Yeah, I still think Sam Houston's a favorite. Let's call him a 2-1. With everything James Madison's bringing back, I'll be the homer. We're probably, we'll be 4-1. North Dakota State 4-1, 5-1. That's probably your first three. I pulled VMI out of my rear end at the beginning of this season. Let's see, who can I pull out of my rear end now?
Austin.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Look at Delaware. I mean, they'll have some guys come back. They're probably going to be like a 13 to 14-1. But you want to throw some wild money on somebody. I mean, maybe you want to go with Campbell out of the Big South there, and then Monmouth. Look at Monmouth as an off the wall kind of team that could make a run.
Brendan Owens, what's your thought process? What are the odds for top three teams? Either top three teams you like that you root for, or that you think have the top three best chances.
So everybody pretty much picked Sam as their first. I think they stand the best chance. After them, I'm going to go North Dakota State. And then for my third favorite, I'd probably either go James Madison or South Dakota State. And then past that, you have teams like Montana, Montana State, Jacksonville State, Monmouth, like Kennesaw. Like, you have so many other teams past that, but I'll stick with my first three.
Matt probably says Furman, but he's not on here, so we'll say that for him.
Yeah, Furman's got the best talent in the FCS. It's every single year. Brian McLaughlin, Matthew Frazee, really, really love the talent that comes into Furman. Lawrence, what about you, sir? And then I'll go, and then we're only one more question before the quick hitters.
I would just say props to Sam Houston for winning this year. I've said a couple times that everything they get, they have earned. That being said, if North Dakota State is not the betting favorite at the beginning of the season next year, just because they're the household brand in the FCS, everyone knows they're going to be good next year. How good, we'll wait and see there. As far as Vegas is concerned, if NDSU isn't the betting favorite, like, I'll eat a shoe or something.
Yeah, I hope you have to eat a shoe. Mine, I'm going to go completely different. I didn't give you guys the option to do this because I don't care. Yeah, Furman season tickets on sale. Those are actually clean uniforms. I like those.
I love the grays for Furman.
Yeah, you guys need to start watching us on YouTube if you're just listening, because Matthew Frazee behind the scenes is throwing out some stuff on the screen. And it's kind of fun. I'm going to actually just give the odds to every single SCS Fans Nation podcast members team. So first, we're going to go with the lowest to the best chance. Chris Hammond, Idaho Vandals, 0% chance. Now we're going to go with Brandon Owens with Cocky Nation, Jacksonville State, 2% chance. Eastern Washington, Kyler Neal, 5% chance. Then we have a three-way tie. Well, there's only two of you. So we have a two-way tie with NDSU and James Madison with the rest of the podcasters. I'm going to give you guys each an 18.7% chance to win the national championship next year, which is just behind Sam Houston at 18.8. So there you guys go. That's my odds. I don't care if you agree with me or not. I'm moving forward. Next question.
Did you put me in the JMU or the Eastern camp there?
You are both. Oh, that ups us then. So we have 12% chance. So, all right, here's the deal. Last question. I'm going to start off my answer, and then we're going to go around the horn. Who cares? Amos Fawcett. He is an amazing fan. He posts a lot of content on the page. I like going back and forth with him. We have a lot of conversation. But he is asking, is the AQ7, or what Brandon likes to call the WAC Sun, currently the number one ranked conference heading into the FCS season? Now, before I go and, ask everyone else, I'm only going to go over some stats and facts for you, buddy. Okay, here we go. Sam Houston is the exception, like they have been all decade. No one is denying how great Sam Houston is. They could be a top 2 and top 3 team in every single conference every single year, with some of the years being number 1. Here's the difference. You look at the rest of the A-Sun, and here's their 10-year resume. Only 2 of them have playoff wins. One is UCA. They're 2-5 in the playoffs the last 10 years. You have JSU, who is 7-7 in the playoffs the last 10 years because they had 2 very solid runs. But now you break it down to how many of those teams out of that AQ7 have wins over big three teams in the past 10 years. It is just UCA, and they beat a team who should have never been in the playoffs to begin with. They were a 4-4 Valley team. Other than that, all the rest of the teams outside of Sam Houston in the last 10 years versus the CAA, Big Sky, and Missouri Valley are 1-14. That paints your picture. They are not the number one conference coming into this next season. They're probably not number 2 or number 3 until they start proving it in the postseason more often. If you get multiple teams like Sam Houston, absolutely. And if you get what I think this conference can do, even when they split up and be the A-Sun and be the WAC, there's a lot of potential for these conferences. They're going to start battle testing each other more, which is going to prep them for deeper playoff runs. So that's the exciting thing, because these teams have a lot of potential. But right off the bat, absolutely not until these teams start beating teams in the postseason, playoff caliber teams from the CAA, Missouri Valley, and Big Sky outside of Sam Houston. That is my thoughts. Brandon Owens, let's see what your thoughts are, because you are going to be a member of the WAC Sun. So you may have the most disagreements with me, while all of Jamie and Lawrence, they're clapping their hands, they're shaking their heads. I'm getting texts from them saying, go Kyler. What's your thoughts, Brandon?
No, you're spot on, but I think with what Jamie has said in the past with the CAA regressing a little bit, I think the WAC Sun will actually be a top 3 conference at some point next season, pending how well the teams perform. If the teams that should be at the top of that conference perform very well, then yes, they should be recognized as a top 3 team for next season.
I got a question for you, Brandon.
Okay.
I got a question for you. How many teams that are going to be in the AQ7 do you think should have made the playoff field this year?
2.
How many CAA teams do you think should have made the playoff field this year?
Okay, fair point. But I mean, I'm gonna be dead serious. Like, the AQ7 is gonna be on par, if not better, than at least one of those conferences next season.
I think the good thing is, outside of, you have a lot of improving programs like ACU. They are an aggressive team. I don't think they're anywhere near the top tier of the FCS yet, but they have a lot of potential. All these programs that are in this AQ7 have so much potential. Will they live up to that potential? I doubt it. SFA, sure, they had 6 wins, which is the most in their program in like the last 20 years. You know, I'm making a little bit of a joke. It's been since 2009, I think, when they beat Eastern Washington, or 2007, something around there. But they played 4 Division II teams. They don't really have 6 wins. I don't see more than 3 teams. I mean, UCA, they didn't look that great in the fall this year. I see 3 potential playoff teams from this conference. I see 3 to 4 from the Big Sky. I see 3 to 4 from the CAA. I see 3 to 4 from the Valley. I think right now, the AQ7 is a top 4 conference, and maybe they're on the hinge of being considered a power conference. I think we can at least give them that credibility that they are on that verge, they're on that tier, and they could definitely prove it wrong. I just don't see it, especially not number 1, not number 2, and I'm still not agreeing with number 3, but they should at least be in the conversation to be considered above all of the other conferences by far. Jamie Williams?
Yeah, I mean, they're 4 at best. I mean, I'd give it a few years. Let's see how these 2 conferences do when they have to play that top-notch caliber team every week, like those other 3 conferences have to. Yes, the CAA has backslid some outside of JMU, but there's still really good teams in the CAA. And I know there's a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths from 2018 when 6 teams made it, and probably 4 should have, and everybody lost except for JMU because they played Delaware, and then they lost to Colgate. But the CAA is still a good conference. And back to what I looked at, I think 8 teams in the CAA made the quarters over the last 10 years. So there's still depth in the CAA. It comes and goes. William and Mary hasn't been good for years. In 2 years, they're probably going to be good. You don't know what Albany's going to do. The Big Sky, you expect the Montana teams to be good again. Eastern Washington, since, they're not going to NAIA or D2 or D3. They're going to be an FCS team. They're still going to be good. They've got Eric Barrier with a huge chip on his shoulder, so he'll drag them into the fight, hopefully. And maybe they're the 4th or 5th best team there, but it still shows the depth of that conference. The Valley speaks for itself. They deserve 11 teams in the playoffs this year, but they only gave them 5. So, but the Valley's still going to be deep. So, yeah, the WAC Sun, they're the fourth conference. Should be competitive. Should have a couple playoff teams, and who knows? They might have a repeat champion. But Sam Houston's really the only team from that group that I think will win a championship.
Yeah, so I skipped through the other WAC ASUN questions because I think all of us, already hit on them. But Bruce, he asked a question, how many AQs will be. We kind of already mentioned what our thought process was. So let's move to the quick hit questions. It's only going to be, I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to pick one person to answer. This is not going to be a big open discussion unless you have a quick hit point, 5 seconds or less on a rebuttal. So the first question from Garth something Rasenberger, whatever your last name is, I don't care. I'm not a good reader, but no, Rosenberger. Give me a little bit of props. I don't think it's horrible. It's close enough. I'm going to ask Lawrence this question because he was definitely in Frisco. Were the bars in Frisco missing the NDSU fans? Oh, wait, never mind. Let's pass. Let's see. Jamie Williams, were there bars missing the NDSU fans?
I don't think so. I mean, we went out. Everything was pretty full. We didn't have a whole lot of room to move around. Couldn't hear each other talk. Where we went, Top Golf was pretty full. For being a short turnaround from a Saturday to the next Sunday, Frisco was pretty full. Sure, if NDSU was there, probably would have been a little bit more full, but I don't think Frisco was hurting last weekend. It was nice.
Nope, we went to like the SDSU official tailgate bar, and it took me over an hour to get a drink. So nope, they were not missing NDSU fans. But can we also this is a side question, and I don't care if we run over 8 minutes past the time, but isn't it a little bit weird that SDSU had their it seemed like official tailgate with their boosters, having all their kids at tailgaters, or tight ends, that's what it was called. A little bit different having, 4-year-old kids looking at some booty. But all right, that's besides the question. We will move over to the next one. Jamel Lewis, he asked, do you think the spring playoff teams that had an early exit will make a deeper run in the fall playoff season? Lawrence, what's your thought process?
What are we considering an early exit? Like first round?
Like first round, like an Eastern, for example. We had a very early exit.
Yeah. If we're talking about specifically Eastern, I think Eastern certainly has the potential to be a quarterfinal, semifinal, championship, game team next year. But I don't think there's any correlation, through the entire field with teams that exited early and being more prepared for next season. If that's what the question is asking, I think it's a team by team basis, and maybe that's an episode we could do during the off season.
Yeah, I think this question is kind of just asking. We already reiterated it in the beginning. Like, do you think because they left a couple weeks earlier that they're going to be more prepared? I don't think a couple weeks gives anyone any more recovery time with those young athletes. Okay, Keith Hooper again. How does the finish of the national championship game compare to some of the great championship games we've had in recent memory? Who have I not asked a question to? Brandon, take this one away.
The only other game that was like this that I remember since being exposed to the FCS is the Illinois State, North Dakota State game. That's the only one I can really compare it to. It was very hard fought, very close. And the only difference, I believe, is that NDSU scored literally on a last-second touchdown going into the running it into the end zone. That was Carson Wentz or Brock Jensen? Carson. Okay. So I think that's the only one that really compares to. Now, as far as if this game was better, I think this game was a lot more exciting than that one.
Yeah, I'm with you. Any other agreements? I think this game was awesome to watch, at least top 2, if not top 1 games that they've ever had in Frisco.
I think the weather patterns of rain and then sun and then really hard rain, the lightning delay, and then the clearing out and then being able to actually have some good weather made this game really awesome. Lawrence?
It's always exciting when the offense gets it done for the comeback win and in the last seconds. I could certainly make the case that the previous championship game with NDSU making the interception on the goal line to preserve their win when they were already ahead. For people out there that are big fans of defense, that's a shining example as well.
Yeah. There's been some fun games, and there's been not so many fun games. Sorry, Brandon, yours is probably the least entertaining in Frisco. Don't want to rattle that, but even you're aware of that. But there's been some exciting games, and hopefully every single year it continues to get more intense and more exciting, because at the end of the day, all of us are fans. We all had a good time there rooting for no one. So that was kind of an awesome experience. So Big Ben from Northern Colorado, what are your thoughts on Dixie State and Tarleton after the first FCS seasons? Do they improve in the fall? I'll take this one. I thought they did better than expected in their first season as an FCS. What is it? Tarleton State had an FBS win. Now, yes, I'm not considering that a regular FBS win, because that FBS team played in the fall and they used this game as a scrimmage game without any prep. And it's also the worst FBS team. But that was just a weird scenario. So I think they did better than what they were supposed to do. And it was exciting to see some new faces that could potentially make the WAC pretty impressive over the next 10 years. But what do I think? Do they improve in the fall? I think they're a long ways away from being considered one of the top 25 teams in the nation. I think, they have a lot of potential, especially Tarleton. They're in Fort Worth. They've got some aggressive boosters. Dixie State has some aggressive boosters. They all want to make the jump to FBS, and they're probably going to be better prepped to make a jump to FBS sooner than a lot of the FCS schools out there. So I'm excited to see what they do, but it's going to take 5 years before, I think they're even remotely competitive with the top tier teams in the FCS, just like Northern Alabama. I know Brandon has a little bit different thoughts on them. I think they have a lot of potential, but they're still not there with the top 25 yet. It's going to take a little bit of time. Yes, Lawrence in the back of the room there.
Like you mentioned, I think they both probably exceeded expectations this year. Next year is going to be the real test, though, and sophomore slump, 2 words. I think getting into the full swing of an FCS schedule is going to bite both teams.
I like it. Any other quick thoughts? 5-second hitters. Cool. All right. Who are the biggest winners and losers in regarding to the transfer portal? I don't know if you guys have been following the transfer portal this offseason, but there's definitely some big losers and big winners. Does anyone want to name either a winner or a loser?
I got one loser.
Go for it. We'll do a round the house table. You go for it, Jamie, and then I'll work our way around.
One loser, VMI. Risha Dinsky's out. I know Seth Morgan played well. They just had Josh Surratt, their best defensive back, left and went to James Madison. So, unfortunately for my Cinderella of this year, VMI, they've lost a decent amount in the portal. Lawrence?
The winner is the FBS G5 conferences, and the loser is the entirety of the FCS.
Yeah. Jacksonville State guy, Brandon Owens, your face looks a little upset. Do you want to add anything to the transfer portal question?
Trey Berry.
I guess a winner, if you're talking about one single player, is Trey Berry, because he's actually going to a school where they're probably going to utilize him a lot better. But as a whole, there's a few other things that I know that I can't really state out loud. But the overall loser for me is Jacksonville State.
Yeah. How many incoming guys have you had versus outgoing, if you know off the top of your head, or what's at least been posted live?
We have, hang on, I have a list, but I think the last time that I checked, this is including stuff I cannot state out loud.
Yeah.
We have
from NDSU's going to JSU.
But 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6 people that have entered the transfer portal.
Okay. Yeah. I think Eastern Washington has a big loser too. Chris Ojo. It was a bummer not seeing him in the playoffs. Also not seeing Ty Graham in the playoffs. Ty Graham just decided he's not going to continue playing football. But Chris Ojo, our best linebacker, he decided he was going to enter the transfer portal a week prior to the playoffs. So there's been some big hitters, and I think a lot of that for Eastern Washington wise has to do with a lot of the negative comments that the media has done the last year and a half, trying to paint a picture that is not an actual reality. So that's kind of the bummer, but we all wish these kids the best of luck, and hopefully they get an opportunity to shine. I just don't see why Chris Ocho chose the school he did, but we will talk about that in another thing because Eastern Washington beats that school by 40.
Go
all
Brian.
right. Yeah. So the last question by Kia Wilson, JMU fanatic. We met him in the championship game, not this year, but the year prior. What is the best movie for football to watch right now? Let's hear every single person's. We're going to start with Lawrence, Brandon, Jamie, then myself. Lawrence, what's the best football movie to watch right now?
The best football movie currently and as always and forever will be Remember the Titans.
You guys are all saying that?
Well, okay.
Go ahead, Brandon. You were next.
So that one, what Lawrence said, but if you're wanting something that's a little bit more funny, Disney's The Game Plan is a really good football movie.
Man, you guys are all just biffing this hard.
Yeah,
Jamie?
I mean, Remember the Titans. I will watch that every time it's on, just because, hey, it took place in my state. I've seen the school, know somebody who went there at the time, so that was pretty cool. But give me another one.
You're that old?
I didn't go there at that time. I'm older than all of you, but
Okay.
But my other one that I can watch over and over is Waterboy, because it's just funny.
Waterboy's a good one. Remember the Titans. That's one of my top 3 football movies. Here's my number 2. Friday Night Lights, especially with that ending, how it was, because I didn't read the book. Like, I have never read any book in my life. I was expecting them to beat Dallas Carter because I didn't know the history. And then what a sad ending. You felt like SDSU fans. You felt like Eastern Washington fans. You felt like JMU fans. You felt like Jacksonville State fans. You had all the emotions. But the best football movie of all time, The Little Giants. Applause. No applause. Wow, you guys are all trash. All right.
I'll give you snap.
We'll give a little snap. Now, what is that crap? Now available on DVD. The Bison Football 2006 season. What's crazy is most NDSU fans don't even realize there was a team in 2006. So that's actually pretty cool. That's on historic DVD, maybe even VHS. All of those fans that started in 2011, there was NDSU prior to 2011, and they had some good years, including 2006, that 3-win season. It was adorable. Any other comments? No? All right. So the ending, Matt put on the agenda, ending game of the week. What the hell is that type of a question? There is no more game. The ending game of the week is us chatting about the game. Let's just give all of us, what was your favorite experience in Frisco this year? And then we'll have a couple ending notes. Lawrence, let's start with you.
Pass.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's move to Jamie.
You know what? It was just the opportunity to just hang out with all you guys, just spend the weekend enjoying the FCS football, getting out, just going to Topgolf, enjoying the game. Just, if you have the opportunity to go to Frisco, do it. Meet up with the FCS Fans Nation group. We met so many good people. It was awesome. But only in the fall from now on. Thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, Brandon, what was your favorites?
Same thing as Jamie, but one thing to add for me, because I am in the process of making another podcast with one Will Seiler. So actually meeting up with him at the game and kind of discussing all of that, preparing for all of that, and continuing to stay in discussion about it after the game. That was pretty cool to actually finally get to meet him and discuss the logistics of all of that.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple things I enjoyed about this weekend, but number one on the top of my list, you guys saw in the video that Matthew Frazee put online. It was pouring down rain. We saw little Hobbit Chris Hammond. He was doing his little dance without shoes in the puddle. He's doing his Frodo Baggins dance. That was by far my favorite.
When me and Jamie were in the car drying off?
Yeah, when you guys were in the car drying off, and Chris just said, you know what? I got Pacific Northwest feet. I'm going to do my Hobbit Frodo Baggins dance in the middle of the rain in the puddle. Guys, it was such a fun weekend. I had a blast with all of you guys. And this is the end of our show. Thanks, everyone, for listening. You know the plug at the very end of this. You know where to follow us. You know where to find us. You can go to FCSFansNation.com, actually, and look at all of our sites where we are. There's links. There's hyperlinks. You can look at our contests. Please like, subscribe, rate, follow, share. Do everything about this podcast. We appreciate it. If you give us 5 stars, we'll be on more platforms. We'll be easier to Google. So please, do us a little favor if you've enjoyed listening to us, because we do this for free. As you can tell, there's no Montucky sponsorships here. Screw you, Montucky. The ultra refreshing, whatever that whole spiel is. We don't do this. We don't have any sponsors yet or anything like that. So we've been doing this the last 3 years just because we have a good time talking about FCS football. We hope you guys enjoy it. So please like, subscribe, rate us. Any other thing? Do you guys have any other closing remarks? If not, I'm going to say boom.
Yeah. Roll humps.
Roll
See you in the
humps.
fall.
See you in the fall. Fear the beak. And let's just go Eastern Washington. Please fix your line, get a little stronger, get a little bigger, and then we're national championships. There we go. Go FCS Fans Nation. Boom.